This is James Dorton from Ne Obliviscaris, Black Crown Initiate, Dia Morte, and many more. And you are watching RichardMetalFan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 366 of RichardMetalFan Interviews, here outside of Hangar 1819 in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'm here with James Dorton from Ne Obliviscaris, Black Crown Initiate, Faceless, and I've put too many bands to name. So how are you doing today, James?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I know you've been on this awesome tour right now with Rivers of Nile and Psychroptic, so how has the tour been? The most typical interview question ever, as I always say.
Oh, it's all good, man. Yeah, so far so good. The turnouts have been great. The bands are, of course, great. A ton of friends on this tour. It's only been about 9 days or so, or 10 days since it started. So we're getting into the swing of things. You know, our bodies are adjusting to living on a bus. But all in all, I would say it's been pretty good.
That's awesome. So kind of the format is I want to talk about like your musical history and sort of do a rundown of your discography, but take me back to young James Dorton. So growing up in Delaware, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to be a vocalist?
Oh, man. You know, I think that the reason I became a vocalist is because subconsciously when I was a kid, I wanted to be Godzilla when I grew up. So, like, I was a huge Godzilla fan, and when I was a child, I walked around making growling noises, pretending I was this Godzilla. And then when I eventually discovered extreme metal, it was just kind of like a natural segue into that, I think. So you're asking, like, how or when I was exposed to it?
Yeah, pretty much when you were exposed.
Yeah, you know, when I was a very young kid, I had kind of had a tangible, like sort of random exposure to bands like Metallica and Testament and that kind of stuff. And I wasn't like a huge metalhead until I was in high school, actually.
Oh, wow.
My dad was stationed at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma. So we had moved from Delaware to Oklahoma, and then I eventually went back to Delaware. But there was a few people that were pretty instrumental in getting me into metal when I was in high school. I was initially a goth kid. I liked Nine Inch Nails, Depeche Mode, The Cure, Bauhaus, that kind of stuff.
Classic shit.
Yeah. And Rammstein was probably the band that sold me onto metal. So I
love Rammstein.
Yeah. That was my first one when I discovered Herzeleid. That took off from there. The guy who actually properly got me into heavy metal when I listened to that stuff for the first time is actually coming to the show tonight. His name is Zach Arnold, and it's his fault that I'm a metalhead. yeah. But he listened to like all the goth stuff and all the metal stuff, and he showed me Morbid Angel and Cradle of Filth. Showed me Nine Inch Nails and Bauhaus and a ton of other stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yep. I would say that's kind of how it started, is through just the few friends that I had in Oklahoma and rural Oklahoma that somehow gained access to this stuff in the early 2000s.
All right. And I guess then kind of the first band, I believe, if not one of your first bands, was Aborted Existence. Like, I'm digging deep. Like, nobody ever talks about them.
Yeah. My first band ever was a band called Scarred Horizon when I was in high school. It was like a very like Opeth, Tool, Meshuggah influenced band. And then when I moved back home to Delaware in 2003, I joined a band called Aborted Existence. It was like a brutal death metal band influenced by bands like Suffocation and Morbid Angel and Dying Fetus and that kind of stuff. So that was my that was my first band in Delaware in 2004, 2003, thereabouts.
Yeah. And then jumping forward to 2008, I believe you joined up with Nightmare. In 2011, you did the Penumbra album. Like, how'd you hook up with those guys?
So the band was called Nightfire, actually. I met those guys purely by chance. I didn't really know a ton of people when I was living in that part of Delaware. And one day, a girl came up to me and she said, "I see you studying out here every day. Just thought I'd say hi." And so we hung out just as friends, you know, like for a while. And she's like, "There's a metal guy I think you would get along with." And so one day he picked me up from work, and he was a guitar player named Wyeth. And after I graduated college, he asked me if I wanted to jam with him and his buddies, and that became Nightfire. We were super busy for a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then the same year, 2011, you joined up with Antikythera. Tell me about that.
Antikythera was a that was a brutal death metal band that was formed in the local, like, southern Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia area. With there was a band called Her Virgin Womb, which Jesse Beeler, who now drums for Thy Otter's Murder, played for.
Oh, wow.
And so they formed another band called Antikythera, and I was in a bunch of bands at the same time. I was in Nightfire, Antikythera, Blood of Abel was another band. So, yeah, you know, a lot of the bands around that time were super brief projects, but Antikythera, we did actually release something, and that was a short-lived project, but it was cool, and it might have gone somewhere if we had kept going. But
yeah, but then kind of going into 2013, you started up Black Crown Initiate. So
yep.
How'd you get to know, like, Andy and everybody?
So Andy Thomas, I sort of met by accident. Again, it's purely by chance. There was another project that I had for a short period of time called Eclipse into Oblivion with a guy named Colin that moved to the East Coast to play music, and he didn't really have whatever project he was involved in didn't work out. He started dating a girl I knew, and I met him randomly at a Behemoth show in Philly, and so I started jamming with him, and he met a guy named Rick Stiltzflug Michael on MySpace.
Oh, wow.
And so we, at some point, drove up to Reading, Pennsylvania to meet up with Rick. After a period of time, like, we jammed a little bit, but then Rick quit that project to start up a band with Andy Thomas, who's in Rivers of Nihil now, and who I started Black Crown Initiate with. Andy Thomas and I met at a random concert at the Trocadero in Philadelphia, and we kind of were Facebook friends for a while. And then at some point he joined, along with Nick Shaw from Black Crown Initiate, joined Nightfire. Andy and Nick had a bit of a creative difference with the guys in Nightfire, so they decided to start their own band, which is Black Crown Initiate. Yeah,
and tell me about that first EP, Song of the Crippled Bull. Bull. Tell me about that. Where was that recorded at?
That was recorded at Think Loud Studios in Pennsylvania, and by Carson Slovak and Grant McFarland. And Black Crown we did all of our stuff there. Rivers does all their stuff with those guys as well.
Wow.
Yeah, they've changed studios since then. But yeah, they're sick dudes.
Yeah, and then you started playing around, and you got signed to E1 Records. So how did they find Black Crown Initiate?
You know, basically we put up our EP on Bandcamp, and it was #1 on the heavy metal hashtag for like a month. People just discovered it very quickly. The word of mouth was really strong. So we received a lot of label offers very quickly, within a month and a half of the project being released. And we got the right offer from E1, got a lawyer involved, and had a pretty decent contract with them, and that was that. Yeah, and that's still a great album. Like, that was the album that I discovered you guys on. I heard somebody talk about it, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And I've been a fan of Black Crown since then. Awesome. Yeah, I still think it holds up.
Yeah, and then the next album, Selves We Cannot Forgive. I like that album because usually with the debut album, you have like your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came to making Selves We Cannot Forgive, did you feel pressure to follow up Wreckage of the Stars?
Nah. I mean, I feel like for me, there's a lot of my approach to music is something that I do for myself. You know, it's something that, like, I put a lot of time and effort and personal sacrifice into doing. So I do it when I feel like, for my part anyway, you know, like what I offer to the record is something that I don't personally feel a ton of outside pressure about. I just do it for myself, make sure that I'm, you know, living up to my own standards and feeling inspired about it.
Yeah, and that album still holds a place because that cycle was where I first saw Black Crown. I saw you on tour with, I think it was the Dying Fetus Acacia String tour, and then literally that same year you did the tour with Ne Obliviscaris, which little would you know.
Fate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but then flashing forward to 2019, I know you also do some session work or or you did with Shaped Up in Dreams. You did Echoes of Eldrin Deeds. Tell me about that.
That was a project that I was hit up by a guy named Martin who lives in Germany. I've done a ton of session work since then. It's almost hard for me to keep track these days. But that album is very special. It's a very wild experimental record. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, you definitely should. There's a ton of sick artists on there, tons of people. That was something that I was commissioned to do and got paid to do and did it.
Awesome. Then 2020, you did the most recent Black Crown Initiate album, Violent Portraits of Doomed Escape. Tell me about that, because I know that was recorded pre-pandemic. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's personally my favorite release. I guess they're all kind of my favorite in different ways, but it's a very strong output. It was a very painful birthing process. We put it out, and then everything got shut down.
Yeah,
so we never
fucking COVID.
Yeah. We never really had an opportunity to really do too much with that record. It really hurt us a lot financially. We did go out on a tour, and then we got kicked off the tour because somebody got COVID and we couldn't get into Canada.
Yeah, man.
So sucked. But I'm very, very proud of that record. It's something that we put a ton of fucking effort into, man, and sort of took all of our experiences up until that point and made the strongest thing we could.
Yeah, and being as it has been 5 years since the last Black Crown album, have you started working on the next album? What's the stats with that, if you're allowed to say?
I won't say anything about that just yet.
Yeah, you'll tell me when I turn off the camera.
Yeah.
Had to try.
Just keep your ears open.
But then 2022, you joined up with two bands, Dia Morte and, of course, the Faceless. So how'd you end up joining those bands?
Dia Morte was a random thing. I discovered them on the internet, and I had messaged them and said, hey, because I could see that not many people knew who they were. I decided, I think you guys are onto something pretty special. Great stuff. And after that, the main guy behind the band, Drake Mephisto, he sent me a message. I'm wearing 2 merch pieces at the moment.
Yeah, self-promotion at its finest.
Yep, absolutely. He messaged me to see if I wanted to try out for the band, and so I joined up with them, and it's been kind of a passion project for me ever since then. We made a new record last year. It's not out yet. This year, I guess. But it's not quite finished yet, or it's not out yet. It is finished, but it's not out yet.
Yeah.
But we're going to put it out at some point. We're currently promoting the band and trying to grow the presence on the internet a little bit, and then we'll self-release it.
Yeah.
So, and then for the Faceless, Michael Keane, I think it was
the Keane Machine.
Keane Machine. Yeah, he was interested in having me for some time. He had asked me, and then when I did join, I kind of joined at a time when I wasn't sure if I was going to be doing other projects, because COVID created a lot of uncertainty for everyone.
Yeah.
And so it seemed like a good time. And so, joined up with them. I did a show, and Michael Keane is working on new music as we speak.
Yeah, an exclusive here, folks.
Yep. So we'll see what the time frame is on that. It's hard to say what that will be.
In the year 2350.
Yep. Could be.
Yeah. Then last year you did Replicare. You did Center That Cannot Hold. Tell me about that.
Oh, Replicire. Yeah. I guess I do a lot of shit, huh?
Yeah. How do you have time to do all this stuff, James?
I don't. I just don't sleep that well. Replicire is a project that I've been involved with for some time. For about, 7 years, I guess. Something to that effect. I kind of lose track of time, but they're extremely talented group of dudes from Boston, Berkeley College music kids.
Yeah, I've heard of that place.
Yeah, so they're extremely fucking talented, man. They wrote the most insane, spastic record that is too smart for me to write lyrics on. The time signatures on it and stuff. I'm just
like Dream Theater and shit. Times infinity.
Times infinity, man. Yeah, Pohawk on guitar, man. That guy is... He is terrifying to watch. He's one of the best guitar players I've ever seen in my life. It is dizzying to watch him play. So we worked on that record for a couple of years. It was really difficult to make, but the main guy behind the project, it's called Replicaire.
Yeah.
It's Eric Alper backwards. So that's the main dude of the
so
band.
So it's a palindrome.
Yeah. It's the main. That's his project. It's been his band for a long time, and so he produced the record. We recorded at his studio where he works, and put it out on Season of Mist, and I'm pretty proud of that record. It's much different than anything else I've done. It's very like death metal, but also very Dillinger at the same time, and like tons of progressive stuff going on, Cynic influence.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And of course, the most recent thing, now you're an official member of Ne Obliviscaris, although you played live with them for about 2 years. So how did you get to be the new harsh vocalist?
Well, one day, when Black Crown Initiate had done a tour with them in 2016, Zen at the time was sick and had lost his voice. And so they asked if I could step on stage to fill in for a song. And I did. For Devour Me Colossus. And there's a video of that somewhere.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah. And something had happened with Zen shortly before a European tour 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
About 10 days before the tour was to start, I got a message from Tim Charles asking, hey, do you think you could learn a 90-minute set in 10 days?
It's like, no pressure or nothing.
And if so, would you be interested in coming along and filling in on this tour? And I said, yeah. And so I spent 8 hours a day plus learning the material and showed up to Helsinki and had it down.
Yeah, and I remember seeing you about 2 years ago at the Masquerade in Atlanta. You did that tour with Beyond Creation and the Omnific. That was the first time seeing you play, and you were kind of filling in, which honestly, eventually when you joined, I kind of knew it would happen eventually. Actually, when you kind of joined up with Neo, were you kind of like nervous, like taking Zen's place?
Nah.
Not at all.
No, I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
I started growling, like as soon as I discovered the music, and I've been performing for so long. I think that, I'm not Zen. I'm very different. My vocal style, my personality is like, I'm a different guy.
Even your stage presence, you have more engaging.
Yeah, I'm he's like a sleek vampire, and I'm a big ugly motherfucker. And so like,
you're far from that, dude.
I appreciate it, but I got on stage with him. I got on stage with them, and it felt pretty natural, and like I get along with the guys super well, and it felt like the next logical step for me.
Yeah. And when you joined up with Neo, were you like listening to like the albums and be like, this is what I need to do, or were you allowed to like bring like your own mix, being like you came from like Black Crown Initiate and Faceless and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally my approach is a bit different, right? Like my vocals are just different from Zen's, but so I do stuff it's kind of both and neither, so I try to like do what's appropriate for the band, but naturally it's my voice, so it's gonna be different, and I want to bring the strongest elements of what I can do. I want to bring the strongest elements of what I can do. Yeah, siren time. To the project, so naturally that means I got to lean into some of what I do best, and naturally it comes out a bit different. But
all right,
yeah.
And being as now Neo, was from Australia, but now it's pretty much an international band with 3 members from Australia, Benji from France, Martino from Italy, and you from the States. How does that, like being from different parts of the world, affect like the chemistry within Ne Obliviscaris?
I think the chemistry is great. Yeah, I mean we see each other a lot and spend a lot of close time together, especially this year, last 2 years for this album cycle. We don't really see each other outside of that, very much, but it hasn't really affected the closeness necessarily. So as far as like doing anything else besides touring, it can be expensive to get together, right? But it's not that bad.
Yeah, and of course you've been like a vocalist with all your other bands, but now with Neo, you're sharing a vocals with Tim. So how does that work? Being in a two vocalist band as opposed to just you being sort of like the main one.
I'm pretty used to it with Black Clown Initiate. Andy Thomas was the clean vocalist of that band, and in Dia Morte, I'm with like 3 other vocalists. There's like several vocalists in that band, so I'm
kind
pretty
of a metal version of the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah. It's very Phantom of the Opera, that band. But yeah, I'm fairly used to that. It's a good dynamic. It gives me a break, especially during a 2-hour set. Fuck.
Yeah.
So.
And being as I know, Ne Obliviscaris' last album came out 2023. Hey, are you starting to work on the next album? Being as this will be like the first record with you in the band, like have you all started working on the new album?
Yeah, we had a writing session in Belgium when we were there during the summer festival season. We had some days off, so we did a lot of writing there. And Martino has been doing writing at home, as has Matt and Benji. So it's underway. We have a lot of work to do yet, but the new album is underway. So we're hoping for end of next year sometime.
Oh, awesome! You pretty much led me into the next question: when it would be come out?
Yeah, so there will be some kind of new music by the end of next year. It's hard to say whether or not the full thing will be done. I think it depends on how quickly the writing process goes, which we have a writing session happening sometime earlier in the early part of next year. So yeah, but kind of also in the end to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Ne Obliviscaris? I know you got this awesome tour right now, so what's next for y'all? Yeah, basically, like, we are planning to not go out again until we've finished the record. Yeah. So we'll focus on finishing that album, and then we'll roll out the next chapter. Yeah. And then we'll start touring again.
Awesome. So thank you, James, for this conversation. It's great to be able to chat with you. Any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close this out?
Yeah, I just would like to say thank you so much for your support. Thanks for watching this, and thanks for being supportive of me taking over Zen's role, at least most of you. But thank you all just for your personal support of anything that I've done, if you have indeed supported it.
Awesome. So everybody, James Dorton from Ne Obliviscaris, Black Crown Initiate, and we'll see you next time.